Thank you for coming. My name is Catherine Peterson, and I am the current president of Women in Business at Villanova. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. This year, the Villanova Women in Business Society had the pleasure of working with the Clay Center to host our third annual Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling Conference. This was organized to help you connect with your peers, faculty, alumni, and distinguished businesswomen. Throughout the night, you will be exposed to a plethora of important issues facing young women in today's business environment. We encourage you to learn from each other, take the great advice that is offered here tonight, and let yourself be inspired by the fabulous women around you. I am going to turn it over to Christina Saggiomo, but I would first just like to thank our sponsors. Without their generosity, none of this would have been possible. Our Wildcat sponsors, Bloomberg, Morgan Stanley, and KPMG, and our blue and white sponsors, Ernst & Young, PwC, Verizon, and Wolverine Worldwide. Thank you, and here's Christina Saggiomo.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So I am absolutely thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. Her name is Ariane de Bonvoisin, and I knew I was going to mess that up, so there you go. That's out of the way. But Ariane is the CEO and founder of First 30 Days, a New York City-based media company focused on guiding people through all types of changes, both personal and professional, and social or global. The company, which launched its website, www.first30days.com, in February 2008, features 60 life-change subjects, including those relevant to our times, such as losing a job, selling a home, starting a business, dealing with depression, smart investing, reducing debt, and living frugally. With a degree in economics and international relations from the London School of Economics, Ariane began her professional career at the Boston Consulting Group and worked in over a dozen countries during her tenure. After receiving an MBA from Stanford University, she moved to New York, working with media companies Bertelsmann and Sony. In 2000, she joined Time Warner as the managing director of a new $500 million digital media venture fund. The fund's mission was to take equity stakes in early-stage, potentially strategic technology companies. Prior to her launch of First 30 Days and time at Charlie Rose Productions, Ariane spent a year as a senior advisor on a humanitarian project, A Day in the Life of Africa. The project involved the top 100 photojournalists placed in 53 countries of Africa on a single day. Ariane has a monthly column in Redbook magazine and Ad Age, is MSN's life change expert, a contributing editor to BusinessWeek.com, a life balance expert for Health magazine, and has appeared on dozens of TV and radio shows, including NBC's The Today Show, the CBS Early Show, Fox and Friends, CNN Radio, and ABC News Now. She is a Huffington Post contributor and has written articles for media outlets including Town & Country, the New York Daily News, Reader's Digest, Women's Health, and Media Bistro, among others. Before I introduce her, I will show you all a short video about just some of her accomplishments, and then I will welcome her to the stage.
It's a pleasure to welcome you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad we finally got together and finally did this. It's only been a long time in the making.
Wow, that's a fascinating question.
And we should had about 5 hours for this conversation because you asked really good questions.
Just want to
and help watch early response to change. It may not be easy, but it's one of the constants in life.
Does it stress you out? Well, our next guest shows us how to embrace change.
Ariane de Bonvoisin. Did I say that right?
Ariane de Bonvoisin.
Ariane de Bonvoisin.
I'll do it right. Ariane de Bonvoisin.
Ariane de Bonvoisin. Very good.
It's the one constant, the one thing guaranteed in life. And I just was like, there must be a way to make change easier.
You have such an incredible story.
I spent my childhood in Asia, and I went to boarding school and college in London, got an MBA at Stanford.
So you're very well traveled and you have great world experience.
Ariane, you're somebody who's made a lot of big leaps in your day. Climbed Kilimanjaro and learned to windsurf.
Hold on. Looking through your bio, it's ridiculously impressive in a good way.
7 jobs before the age of 30, somewhere in top of a very high ladder that I think was leaning up against the wrong wall.
What's the toughest change you ever had to make?
Leaving a successful corporate job, becoming an author.
Our new book is The First 30 Days, your guide to any change.
The first 30 days is typically when you want to get started and you want to stay started. And the good news is there are ways of actually making everyone better at change. Money changes, financial changes, relationship changes. The change also is something that we all have. Get a change support team around you. You do not change alone. Set up some sort of penalty and say, you know what, Robbie? You're going to hold me accountable. Any action you take is a choice to actually move forward. From this situation, something good will come.
It's a multifaceted initiative of yours.
This is what's cool about Ms. Ariane. She has a website called thefirst30days.com.
It's a wonderful companion to the book. I wanted to create a place that was full of inspiration, full of tips, with the right tools, the right experts, the right community. It's really about giving people hope, optimism, information. When I began this journey, I realized it was crucial to reach as many people as I could. So I began writing for magazines, doing radio interviews, television, also appearing on other websites and speaking live to as many people as I could. Frankly, I'm humbled by the response that I've gotten.
The website is beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. I started informally interviewing everyone that sat next to me at any place and time, from airplanes to restaurants. I've interviewed probably a couple of thousand people who are going through everything from an accident to breaking up to being a single parent to adopting a child. Dick joins me here today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Tim is here to explain his New York Times bestseller. Welcome, Tim.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, Sherry.
Well, it sounds very exciting, Ariane.
What has happened in the last few months that we find ourselves in such a time of turmoil, crisis? Is ambition a bad thing, that we want to move away from it?
I don't think it's bad, necessarily.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I love your show. Thank you.
We've done so many of these interviews together over the phone, and it feels interesting that there's like a sea of women out there to watch us this time.
I'm going to be an inspiration for someone else. I'm going to show them that it's possible, but ultimately, you're the guru, you're the wise guy, you're the person that actually has the answer. Change happens through the heart. We're all so much more powerful and resilient and intuitive than we've ever been told.
You know what I think is so fascinating about you? You really have all of the materials to take you wherever you want to go.
Change has been good to you, and this book I need to keep in my back pocket.
I'll probably email you with a bunch of drama. Is that cool?
Do so. Go ahead. Yeah, we'll talk. I'll give you a little insight.
So please, everyone, join me in welcoming Ariane to the stage.
You know, I've never seen that video in a giant screen, and I find myself being intimidated by myself. It's a really strange feeling. And I think I got the memo about being coordinated with the person introducing me. I'm just going to see if I can move this up. I guess I'm just going to move it like this. So what a pleasure. I was feeling old when I was driving up in the car because I graduated about 20 years ago from college. And I was just remembering 20 years ago is when the Berlin Wall fell today. And I was in college, and a lot of walls have fallen since then.
whether it's walls that we have in our heart, whether it's walls politically, whether it's walls like the glass ceiling. So a lot of walls have fallen. So it's an interesting day to be giving a talk about this specific subject, because the only thing that's in the way of anything you dream of, want to be, is some sort of a wall. It's really nothing else. It's not a person, it's not a belief, it's not an idea. You know, having interviewed thousands of people going through all types of change, whether it's starting a job, starting a business, graduating, breaking up, getting married, losing a loved one, cancer, you know, really all the spectrum of changes. There's only so many excuses that I've found get in the way of people who want to make change, whether it's professionally or whether it's personally. And there are things that sound like this: I'm too young, I'm too old. I hear that one a lot. It's not my nature. You know, that's not the sort of person I am. I'm a business person. I'm not a creative person. Oh, you're going to give me this other one where we hunch back. You're so sweet. You really are all color coordinated. Does it work? Thank you. Oh, that's much better. It's not my nature, so someone's going to get, you know, someone's going to disapprove maybe of my choice, whatever it might be. Another one, it's going to take time. It's going to cost money. So there's all these excuses that are in the way. So one of the things I would say is just identify what's your number one go-to excuse, because that excuse is either going to rule your life, or you're just going to kind of watch it. The beginning of any change is awareness and actually pulling things out of your blind spot and going, this is my number one go-to excuse. And just ask yourself the question, who would I be without my excuse? Who would I be without my story about why I can or cannot do something? So you guys saw a little bit of my video, so I'm not going to talk too much about what you saw, but I have an accent. Very often people are like, where are you from? They can't even hear anything else I'm saying until it's like, where is this guy from? So I was born in the US. I have French and Belgian parents. Grew up all around the world. And so I was obviously exposed to a lot of change growing up. Didn't realize how much my parents were teaching me about change. I mean, my personal belief is getting good at change is the most important life skill to get good at. I don't think you guys got a course in getting good at change here. I also think getting good at change is the number one business skill right now. People are looking for people who can manage and go with change. People who are good at change are the ones not being fired. You know, it's what I'm seeing as well. So really, I'm going to try and sort of help you get good at the change of what can and will happen. We're all going to get our fair share. So just, you know, backing up a little bit over my stories, I grew up in 6 countries, and even though I was exposed to all of this change, I did go the safe route. Went to college, went into management consulting. I worked for Boston Consulting Group, and, you know, just sort of started doing what I thought the world expected of me. And so I fell into all these very big, intimidating, impressive jobs without really me ever choosing them. So I went to business school, and I thought, if I'm going to go back to school, I'll go to a beautiful place. Went to Stanford. And then I thought, okay, I'll move to New York, the next thing I was expected to do. And went into the corporate world and worked at these 3 big media companies. And what started happening was I was very good at my job. You know, I'm sure every one of you will be very good at what you do. But there was this growing sense of not being happy, not honestly communicating what was going on. So people would say, you know, how's your job? Oh my God, you've got such a big job. And I'd be like, I love it. And there was this like inner uncomfortableness that just grew and grew and grew after years and years and years. And what I realized was, you know, every morning I would wake up and what I call the inner microphone would go off. And the inner microphone, we all have one, we're all born with one. For some of us it's really on, and for some of us it's totally silent. And the inner microphone sounds like this: Ariane, you're in the wrong job. Okay? That's what the inner microphone sounds like. And it would go off every morning for 8 years. And for 8 years I didn't have enough of the courage to kind of turn it on and go, I'm going to listen to that, because it involved work, it involved consequences, it involved admitting to myself that I'd climbed this very high ladder, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And I had another microphone going off because I was engaged to a guy that was like, Ariane, you're sleeping with the wrong guy. And that one was really loud too. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. My whole perfect life, personally and professionally, is completely not right. And we all have that voice. You know, there's one thing you can turn on tonight for the rest of your life, it's that voice, because it will never ever guide you wrong. And as much as you turn it off, it's going to keep coming back on. So when your inner and outside is in sync, that's when you actually start finding peace and you feel happy, and you know, one of my favorite quotes is the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And it was so real to me that, you know, actually having the courage to kind of step off the ladder was huge for me. And I stepped off not knowing what was next. You know, I didn't have the next trapeze, didn't have the next name, didn't have the next very big business card to go to. And I took a little bit of time off. And I sort of just started asking life to show me the way. Okay, great, so now I'm off the corporate track. What would you like me to do? And I started having like antenna on my head, and I started looking for clues. So I'd meet someone, and someone would recommend a book. I'd hear a song, I'd see an email, and I just started noticing things, like antenna on my head. And what I would notice was every single person I was meeting, every one of you in this room, is in one of three categories. You're either struggling with a life change, you're either secretly wanting to or trying to or thinking about a change, or you're helping someone else through change. If you're being a friend to someone, you're helping them through change, it might be a parent, or whoever it might be. And everyone I would meet would say one of three things. I hate change, I'm bad at change, I resist change. And I thought, isn't this interesting that this change thing is all around us all the time? It's the number one thing that we go through as human beings, and yet we all hate it and we all think we're really bad at it. And I became obsessed with this question: how do you make change easier? Why are you good at change and someone else might be really bad at change? Why is it that you initiate a change and someone else never does? And I thought, are there habits, are there principles, are there ways of making change easier? I didn't know I was going to become an author. I never knew I would ever be speaking. You know, I had been tattooed. I was the business girl, right? I went to Stanford Business School. I'm a business person. Not in a million years did anyone ever say to me that I was creative. Not once. No one told me I could write. No one told me I could speak. No one told me I could interview. And this was in my mid-30s. So it's interesting how life sort of catches up to you at some point where, you know, what you're meant to be doing shows up much, much later on in life. It doesn't necessarily show up when you're graduating. Every step that I took sort of led me to what it is that I'm doing today. I'm going to take a quick glass of water. So in some ways, my dream and my business kind of found me. I sort of was open to it. I sort of was looking for the number one thing that was missing in my job and my career was I didn't feel like I was making a difference. I didn't feel like I was serving. I didn't feel like what I was doing mattered. So I don't know, sort of what I found is for a lot of people right now, that is sort of that guiding force. I mean, Erin and Anna, who you're going to hear from later, sort of what drives them is this desire to contribute. And if there's anything I would say is find something where you can serve. Find something that has this meaning and this purpose. Find your reason why you want to do something. Because I'm getting emotional just talking about it. You know, in the times where you gave me such a beautiful introduction, and you could have given me the introduction of all the really tough times, because it sounds all glorious. And it's been a hard journey. It's been a tough place to go from where I was to where I am now. So, you know, your humanity is what people actually want to see. Whether it's personal, whether it's professional, that's the place where you find your power. It's not in the perfection of the resume. It's not in the, you know, it's more in your change resume. What are all the changes you've had the courage to make? So one of the things I wanted to say is, you know, the Dalai Lama, there's a recent summit in Vancouver, and he said something that was very interesting at the Peace Summit. He said, "The world will be saved by the Western woman." Anyone hear him say that? Did you guys put that up in the press anywhere? So it's a very interesting statement, and I thought it's so important for women to sort of take their place and sort of feel like they are part of what it is that's now being created. I know the theme of the conference is breaking through the glass ceiling, which is an interesting thing because I have never personally felt a glass ceiling. I think if no one had ever said or mentioned the word or had this term, I think we'd be much better off. I, was in very big corporate jobs, and I just never bought into that belief. The number one principle of people who are good at change is they have their own set of beliefs. They do not buy into the beliefs of what the tribe say. So the tribe would say divorce is a bad thing. People who are good at change are not going to go into what it is everyone's saying. People would say losing their job is a bad thing. So the tribe is what everyone's trying to tell you to believe. People who are good at change are optimistic. They have their own beliefs, whether it's about life, whether it's about themselves, or whether it's about a particular change that they're going to make. But if you're like, the only thing to remember about people who are good at change is that they're optimistic. Things eventually work out. It's what I call the change guarantee. From this situation, something good will come. From this situation, something good will come. Having interviewed thousands of people, everyone can sort of say, eventually something good came from a change, even though it might have been a really tough thing that they went through. Einstein said, the most important decision you'll ever make in your life is whether to believe you live in a friendly world or an unfriendly world. This is Einstein, it's not me. Friendly world or unfriendly world? Is the world out there dangerous? Is it out to get you? Is there a glass ceiling? Are there obstacles and big problems in the way? Is it full of suffering? Or is it a friendly world where everything that happens to you is actually there to make you learn and grow and become who you are? You will have a very different life if you're like, in Vegas, I'm going to put all my chips on the friendly world, or I'm going to do it's an unfriendly world. And just think through that sort of particular question. Another thing I would say is, with how you journey through now, people who are good at change do not ask other people's approval, and they do not seek permission from people. We as women spend a lot of time trying to be liked, trying to make sure we're not going to upset the status quo, trying to make sure that people, agree with us first in any form, whether it's who we date and who we marry, whether it's the job we go off and do, whether it's, I want to go off and write a book, but my parents are going to say something. So if you want to sort of break through that limitation, eventually what I will tell you is do not seek anyone's permission or anyone's approval. Not your friends, not your family, not your best friends. You've got to come back to that place inside yourself that knows the truth. That's sort of the place to go as you're moving through. Having a support team. Every single thing that you will do will involve someone there to either close the gap or to facilitate the change. And a lot of the times, one of our biggest fallacies is we kind of go, I'm the only one going through this change. No one else has ever felt this bad. No one else has ever been so terrified. No one else has had so much of these emotions come up. No one has had these three changes happen at the same time. And yet the reality is, it's again, when we look around, we're so much more similar than we are different. We're all going through the same stuff. We all have the same fears if we really sort of peel down the layers. So if you are going through anything, ask for help. It's sort of, I can't tell you how many people I've asked for help sort of over and over and over. You must have a change support team around you. Must. None of what you're doing should be done alone. Our human beings are meant to sort of be and stay connected. Another couple of things I would say are just pillars of sort of who I am and how I've sort of moved into, creating this company, is you must find time to take care of yourself. Women are very good at taking care of everything else, other people. Nothing should ever touch your health. I got pretty sick at one of my jobs, and it was the beginning again of me going, nothing should be making me sick. I was 40, 50 pounds heavier. Nothing should be making you 40 or 50 pounds heavier. Nothing. Not a guy, not a girl, not more money, not a bigger title. Nothing should be affecting your health. And you'll know when it starts happening. You'll be like, oh my God, I put on 30 pounds in this job on Wall Street. Nothing should be touching your health. It's the number one thing to protect. Nothing else comes in between. And whatever that is for you, whether it's working out, whether it's drinking enough water, whether it's, we all sort of have our patterns through it, but take care of your health. Not because something's going to happen, but because when you show up in life, you show up with your energy, you show up with your light, you show up with your excitement, you show up with your endurance. That's what people sense. I know I've hired hundreds of people. All the resumes are the same. Here's the real secret truth. I would say 80% of the people I've hired, I've never read their resumes. So it's great to get the great resume, but when I meet someone at an interview, it's an energy thing. And an energy thing starts with your body, it starts with your health, and it starts with how you feel about yourself. And then it goes to, does this person really want this job? Not a job, this job. And then the third thing is, why does the person want that job? What's their why? Those are the three things. So it's sort of, what you put out to people is what they sense, and some of that is just through the energetics. And so many times we cling to the paper, as opposed to really being in ourselves, because that's what you show up with in the world. Another one is really find time to be silent. It's a very busy world out there. It's noisy. I go through weeks and months of not reading the newspaper, not reading the news. When you read fear, you feel fear. When you see fear all the time, you feel fear. It's a very busy, noisy world out there. Noise is not where things are created. I had the privilege of interviewing Richard Branson a couple of weeks ago, and he said, he goes, I probably spend 6 hours alone a day. 6 hours alone a day. Now, he doesn't have a cell phone, he doesn't have an email address. It's a very busy, noisy world, so find time to be silent. And that's not, you can't socialize and have fun and party and everything else, but when you're going through, like, don't want this job, don't want to get married, whatever it is that might be going on, your answers really are on the inside. They're not in me or a book or outside, they're inside. So find time to be silent. So many of these. I think this one is clear. You must do something you love. Like, there's just no time to do something that you think is going to make you smarter or build a better resume. Right now you're part of a generation that I call the do something you love generation. Not the do something you should do generation, which is law and business and everything. Whatever it is that you truly love, there's no reason why you cannot already start getting closer to that environment. So if you love music, the closer you get to the environment, the sooner suddenly you'll be in it. So whatever it is, get in touch with that thing that you love, because that is ultimately what people are going to sense, and life is going to support you in that direction. I'm going to sort of share a little bit of a story that I heard at Stanford, actually, called the marshmallow story. When people are sort of really wanting something or pushing something, we have an interesting relationship with time. We want urgency. We want things to happen now. We want to know if we got the job. We want to know if the guy, the girl likes us, whatever it is. And at Stanford University, they did a very interesting study with about 100 kids, 5-year-olds. Has anyone heard of the marshmallow principle? Yes? Oh. Yes, awesome. So the marshmallow principle, they took 100 5-year-olds, and the teacher basically said, I'm going to give you a marshmallow. And if you can wait for 5 minutes, I'll give you a second marshmallow. It's the only thing they told the 5-year-olds. So they had the giant clock, and then the teacher left the room, and they had videos on the kids. And basically 80% of the kids approximately ate the marshmallow. Couldn't wait 5 minutes. 10% of them licked the marshmallow, or ate the inside of the marshmallow, so the marshmallow was still there. And 10% did not touch the marshmallow and got a second marshmallow. The story doesn't end there. They followed these kids for 30 years. So up until the age of 35, they followed the kids, just to see sort of who they were and what they were doing in their life. Off the charts, the 10% who had waited for the marshmallow were in better jobs that they loved, had waited for their soulmate, had waited for their dream homes. It was off the charts. So I thought, okay, maybe this was an anomaly. They've repeated the experiment 3 times, not only in the US, South America, and Europe. I mean, the bottom line of the story is sometimes you just need to wait 5 more minutes. I have jumped on the wrong jobs, I've gotten engaged to the wrong guys, because I couldn't wait. So sometimes it's just give yourself a little bit more time, a little bit more patience. Life really has its best interests at heart for you. If I had known that, I probably would have, gone a bit of a different journey. And as I said, all journeys are perfect, and they eventually lead you to where you have to go. But remember, buy a bag of marshmallows, put it on your desk, and when you want to send that email off really quickly, hold back. You want to know the answer, you hold back. But the marshmallow principle is one that it's starting to sort of get talked about a little bit in the press. You can certainly Google it. Another thing I would say is be really careful of the plans that you have for your life. Like, I had a lot of plans. I'm 37 years old. I should definitely have been married with a lot of kids by now. And it didn't happen that way. And it brought me, you know, my share of pain and sadness. But not because I'm not happy being who I am, but because I had a plan, and the plan didn't happen. And amazing things have happened that were definitely not in the plan as of today. I never thought I'd be on TV in my entire life, for example. You know, the Oprah thing and the everything. So sometimes what's really meant for you is really not in your plan. But you have plans for, you know, what's going to happen by the age of 30, and 40, and 50, and 60. And other people have plans for you, and life is telling you what you should be planning. So be really careful of, like, what are the plans that I actually have? Because there's one guarantee, it's not going to quite happen that way. You know, I think it was Woody Allen who said, you know, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And it's just, you know, it's like just comedy sometimes the way it happens. And it won't happen in the same way that you imagine, but it will eventually happen. So just be careful of the plans that you have, and it's not about not having dreams or not being inspired or not having possibility, but it's not clinging, wanting, longing, pushing. It's a very different energy than just kind of allowing things, embracing things. Things are going to show up. You're going to respond to them, as opposed to, I've got to make this happen, it's all about me. You know, another thing I would say as well is stay really connected to something bigger. The language of spirituality sometimes scares people, but what I find is that when you find your safety in that, the world is a very safe place. So just to use a metaphor, you know, what I call the metaphor of the plate. We all get given a plate, you know, metaphorically, our life. And somehow we get a little confused and caught up in thinking that the object of life is to fill up our plate, right? And so on the plate, you've got a little bit of career, and a little bit of health, and you've got maybe a relationship, and then you want the kids, and then maybe there's religion, and maybe there's, you know, hobbies, or spirituality sprinkled on top. And we all compare our plates. Ooh, she's got a job on her plate. She's got a boyfriend on her plate. She's got kids, whoever, whatever it is. We're all comparing what's on each other's plates. And then New Year rolls around, and what do? We definitely don't take things off our plate. We try and fill up the plate even more. We're going to try and make the job bigger. We're going to try and make the health bigger. And we get very confused as to, you know, well, is that really what life is all about? Just to sort of fill up our plates. And being someone who talks a lot about life changes, when life changes, something on the plate has changed. The job's gone. The job's not on the plate. Or, you know, what you'd like to be on the plate isn't yet there, and you push for that. Or, you know, something happens in your health or family. And so the plate starts getting wobbly. It's like, oh my God, what's happening? So the question I would, you know, really have you think about is, well, what's the plate? Because when you focus on the plate, everything that's on it, off it, will be on it, won't be on it, the plate is what holds it together. And we don't focus on the plate. So what's holding your job? What's holding your health? What's holding your relationship? And very often it is more of your connection to something greater. It's your faith. It's knowing that, you know, you're not any of the things that are on your plate. And everything can be wiped off your plate, and you will exactly remain the essence of who you are, your divine nature, your eternal nature, your connection to something greater. Focusing on, well, what's all my life resting in? Not what am I pushing for, what am I trying to add on the plate, but what's sort of holding that whole piece together. Because when you find safety, when you find sort of a place inside yourself that does not change, regardless of all the changes that are going to happen all around, every day, every month, every year, that's when life becomes comfortable. Where you kind of go, you know what, I'm resting in something bigger. It's not anything that needs to change or not change on the outside. That's sort of a sense of peace. You know, I'm probably going to end with one of my favorite quotes, which is actually a Mother Teresa quote. She's one of my, you know, heroes, mentors. And she said something, she goes, you know, God does not require you to succeed. Okay, that was news for me. I've been told my life, you gotta succeed, you gotta do all these things, right? Be superwoman. And the end of the quote is, God only requires that you try and that you do something that you love. And it's interesting because, you know, the world would tell me that I'm successful, right, on the outside. And yet what really only matters to me is at the end of every day, I can kind of hit my head on the pillow and just know that whatever I'm doing, I'm great, I'm trying. I'm trying 10 out of 10. I'm on the court, you know, I'm not on the stands talking about something anymore. So whether it's, you know, a book that I always wanted to write, I've been talking about that for a while. A radio show, I've talked about that for a while. So, you know, whatever it is that you're sort of like talking about, I invite you to just sort of step on the court and try, because the reality is every single thing that has ever happened is a selection of, you know, thousands of little steps. I was saying on the car ride up here, I've probably taken over 1,000 meetings to get to where I am today. Some of the meetings, I have no idea why I ever took them, but I took every meeting, and everyone was like, you should meet this person, you should meet this person. And I was very open to life. I didn't kind of go, why is this person going to help me? Or, you know, why should I go and have a drink? So be very sort of open to everything and anything that might come your way, because the most amazing stuff, whether it's, you know, the whole Oprah thing, for example, I'll give you, you know, a bit of a story as to how that happened, because it was not in the Ariane plan, right? It was in life's plan. And those two things were very different. I was at a conference, not a very big conference, and I was sitting at a table and I had no job, no business card. This was in my in-between phase, sort of at Time Warner. Left Time Warner, didn't know what was next. And I started talking, she was like, so what do you do? Horrible question. And for me, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to say, right? And instead of me going back to everything that I used to do, which was my safety net, I said, you know, I'm thinking about starting a company that helps people with life changes. Because change is the constant and guaranteed thing, we all hate it. She sort of started questioning me and asked me some questions, and, you know, why do you want to do this and why is it important? To make a very long story short, she was the editor of Oprah magazine. So sometimes the person you're sitting next to, you have no idea who they are. So treat everyone like they have a piece to the puzzle. Show up beautifully, show up strong, but show up like from your heart, because if I had said I used to be the managing director of Time Warner, there's no way that would have happened. You know, speak of what you want to have happen, and that's when it actually starts happening. So I'm going a little bit over time, but I love questions. So anything about either my story, anyone is sort of questioned where you're at, please. I'll speak out of here.
I'll run the mic for you. Does anyone have any questions?
No questions. On the court.
So right now I'm a senior and I'm trying to find a job. What kind of advice would you give me, like, specifically as I go through a lot of different interviews, have a lot of different rejection?
Okay, love this question. Number one thing I would do is, I'll speak out there, you can run. The number one thing I would say is, other than doing something you love, is be very original and creative. They're going to get thousands of very similar people, interviews, resumes. It's got to be a different type of letter, it's got to be a different type of connection. And people are like, well, that's not really who I am. I'll give you an example of someone I just hired at the company. Didn't send me a resume, she sent me her change resume. Of every change she's ever been through in her entire life, the ones she's faced, the ones she witnessed, the ones she's helped her family with, the ones she initiated, that's all she sent me. And then she made a couple of references to my book because she's read the book. And it was impossible not to hire her. This girl had sort of like, she put herself forward in such a different way. So I would say find a way to be a little original, a little creative. A lot of the times, you know, if you're getting the interview, you're clearly qualified. A lot of the times, life is not going to allow you to go into a job that's wrong for you. So you will eventually land in a place that is where you are supposed to be. So none of the rejections are personal. You know, none of what is happening is about you, because you were qualified for the interview. A lot of the times it's just getting clear with yourself and going, do I really want this job? And you know what, if you're really honest, sometimes we want a job more than we want that particular job. So I would say get really honest and go, have the jobs I've been applying for that I've been rejected for, truly the ones that I want to be going for? And remember, you're in that do something you love generation, so That's where I would put the energy. I did write an article on the website about 12 things to do if you're looking for a job right now. So if you want, you can definitely go check that out as well. Yes.
You talked a little bit about shutting out everybody and sort of paying attention to what you want, but then your next point was actually having a support system.
Yeah.
So can you talk through what you do with that support system? Are you actually, because actually right now I'm going through a situation where I'm considering applying for another job, and so I'm seeking that feedback, but sometimes it's only adding, I guess, noise.
Yeah. So it's a great question. So there's a different thing between what I would call your change team and your support system. My family were not on my change team. They were dead against any of my changes, and they still are. My dad was like, "You don't think there's enough books in the world?" You know, and my mom was like, "Please give me the grandchildren immediately, and stop working." So my parents were not on my change team. And my brothers were like, good, maybe she'll fail at something, that's a good idea. So, believe me, and at the time, it was not, I didn't come from lovers or boyfriends or friends, so I couldn't ask anyone's, should I leave Time Warner? Should I break up with this guy? Those are decisions you take alone. Once you've made the decision, then you ask the right type of people for help. And there are people who want you to change, who believe you can change, who are not going to give you all their fears personally as to why it's going to affect them while you're changing. A lot of the times people try and lose weight and they get around people where underneath they think they're getting support, but what they're really thinking is, she's tried 6 times before, it's never going to work, right? We all know those people. Or she's crazy, she's been talking about leaving that bad relationship for 3 years, she's never going to do it. Those people, not on your change team. So the decision is yours to make. How you then sort of venture out, I've made the decision, I'm going to break up. That's when you start getting the right type of people around you. There's 2 types of people. There's people that get in the hole with you, right? That give you the empathy and the compassion and you're right, he's such a jerk, and oh, the job market's terrible out there. There's those kind of people who connect with you on what's going on. And you need a couple of those around. You don't need a lot of those people around. Because the goal is not for you to be right. It's actually for you to get on with what you want. There are people that I call the real sources of help, who they'll see you in the hole, and they'll hand you a ladder, and they're going to coach you up the ladder. And they'll piss you off, and you'll be like, get in the hole with me, give me a hug, let me cry, I'm right. And they'll go, sweetie, I've heard your story 50 times as to why whatever's happening. I'm going to hand you a ladder, I'm going to coach you up. And those people you want around. They're confronting people, but they actually have your best interests at heart. When you go through a change, when you're thinking about making a career change or any type of change, very often new people will come into your life with no identity around you of what you were, or who you were, or how you were, but there are people who see you for right now, who you are today, and that's where you can start breathing again, because you're not bringing, all this like legacy of, I used to be a business person, or I used to, I did this degree in college. People kind of give you permission to open up. To just, if you want to really change your life, change the peer group you hang out with. Look at the 5 or 6 people you spend the most amount of time with. They have a giant influence on your life. Whether you're healthy, the jobs you go for, how much money you think you're worth, whether you think you could start a business by yourself. The 5 or 6 people you spend the most amount of time with, doesn't mean you need to get rid of them. It's just choose who it is that you let into that sacred space. Another thing, if you really want to change your life, change what it is that you say to yourself. It's huge. I used to be a 90% negative thinker in my head, where I would look in the mirror and I would always see what was wrong. And I'd say probably the biggest change is that inner voice has very much changed. So start catching the you can't do this, and you put on weight, and you look like shit, whatever it is. Start catching that voice, because it's really not your real voice. So that would be just another thing. Look at the people around you, and then look at the people hanging out in your head who are talking to you all the time as well.
Okay, I think we're going to end the Q&A.
One more question?
I'm just curious, who were the 5 or 6 people that you've chosen to be in your inner circle that support you?
It's a good question. I have a different inner circle for different areas of my life. So I have one, I would say, for my real personal stuff, and then some if I really had to make a big decision or something business-wise, I might pull someone else in. But my 5 people, you would be surprised at. One is a spiritual counselor that I have. She's probably my closest confidant. She knows I'm up here now. She's holding this room in like love and light and energy. But she knows me best. There is nothing she doesn't know. I'm vulnerable with her. I'm exposed. I'm fully revealed, and there is no dark places. So all the shadow stuff that I don't want anyone to ever see, you know, I just sort of show up with it. She gives me permission to be powerful with that. Another one is a friend I've known for 20 years who, you know, just thinks that I could and be and create absolutely everything all the time. But he really truly means it genuinely. It's not, you know, it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, that's just who you are. My mother is the 3rd, for sure. But, you know, it's just an interesting, I know when to call my mother and I know when not to. And I know when to take her call when she calls me. And I know when not to. And it's not I love her any less. It's just I have a boundary of just what I know it's going to do for me emotionally. And I know that, is this call about me giving to her? Or me being, you know, asked for something? Or is it about, you know, having something taken back? Another friend is just a really good, supportive girlfriend. We call each other sister goddesses. And, you know, we just told each other in like that kind of intensity. And then am I at 4 or 5? I can keep going. I've got 5 or 6 at least. And the 5th one is someone who, you know, I've actually very recently met, I'd say within the last 2 weeks. And he and I see, and he's gay, so he's not a potential lover or boyfriend. But he and I just make each other very safe in the world. I hear his voice, I'm safe. I get a text from him, I feel safe. He's a very safe place for me to land. So they're not best friends, right? I have my party friends in New York, I have my travel friends. But they're people who either empower me, believe in me, love me, or make me feel safe. They're not people who have told me, you know, how to lose weight or how to build a business. I have all those people around, but that's who's in my inner circle. So I would say anyone who wants to just keep in touch with me, I'm pretty good on email. I'm actually about to go to South Africa for a couple of months to write my next book. So I'm going to be pulling a little away from just the first 30 days stuff. I'm going to share what my next book is. If anyone wants to just, you know, write to me or be interviewed or anything. It's called A Foot in Both Worlds. And it's how to have a foot in the business world and the career world and the money world and the ambition world and the real crazy world, and how to have a foot on the spiritual path, where it's not an either or. It's not like, oh, I've got to give up ambition and go off and have some meeting. I've got to leave New York and go live in Santa Fe. You know, I've got to stop eating and start having wheatgrass. It's not, we're not in an either or world anymore. We're in an and world. You know, you can be a writer and a banker and a mother and a speaker and a baker and a parent. It's sort of, we're in an and world. It's not an either or world anymore. And I find more and more people are being called more on a spiritual path. But you know, they want to live in New York and they want all of that as well. And it's sort of, how do you actually sort of create that balance between the two? So that's what my next project is. But if you do want to keep in touch, I'll give you my email address. It's contact Ariane. Ariane at first30days.com, and that's FIRST30days.com. I do read all those emails. I can't promise you to write whole long emails, but I do read them, and if I feel I can help, I certainly will. I'm on Twitter, if anyone wants to follow me on the more personal, crazy stuff. My Twitter name is Click Ariane, CLICKARIANE. And then my full name is on Facebook as well, if you guys want to keep in touch. But anything I can do, help, support, I kind of feel that's more about why I'm here and what I'm doing. So I honor you and acknowledge you for taking the time to be here as well. And you know, life is a good place out there. It's you'll see, and life needs you big time. So thank you.